Hello, I'm Gordon Mackay, Deputy Mayor of Midsomer Norton Town Council. Today with me I've got Alex Davis, who is the manager of the Midsomer Norton Community Trust. Hi Alex, how are you?
Hello Gordon, I'm good, thanks.
So first thing is, as manager of the Midsomer Norton Community Trust, what does that involve?
So the Midsomer Norton Community Trust runs, was set up in 2013 by the Town Council. Its trustees are only 4 councillors though, so the majority from the public outside of the council. We run 3 community buildings, which at the moment, which are the Town Hall, the Orchard Hall, Unit 14. We also have the hub down by the skate park, and that's ours as well. And we also run lots of community events. Some of those in those spaces, things like the cinema and the concerts. And we also run events. We've been involved in, we've run Midsomer Norton Fair, we've done the Jubilee events, M-Fest, Christmas light switch-ons, Pride, and helped with Carnival obviously as well.
Oh, very good. So how long have you been doing that
job? Since the beginning, so I suppose, 9 years I suppose now, so it's a long time, isn't it?
Okay, and how did you get involved?
I got involved, I actually was, when I came back from university back 10 years ago, 10 and a half years ago I suppose, when I was looking for some money, when I came back, so I'd blown it all, I actually helped I painted the Orchard Hall actually as a job, literally painted the inside of the hall, and then I was, Paul Myers was, was involved in setting up the trust at that point. They were trying to bring community buildings together to work together to make them more financially viable and keep hold of them, to stop them being knocked down and turned into flats and things like that. And so from there he asked me about helping to set it up, so I did some part-time work helping set the charity up, and then eventually ended up managing it.
Oh, fantastic. So the other thing, obviously, today we wanted to speak about the renovation or the transformation of the town hall. First thing I thought would be useful to know is what groups actually use the hall at the moment?
There's a massive range of groups, I suppose. You've got things from service groups. You've got, Age UK in their views of doing their dementia group in there. You've got lots of counselling groups, such as Off the Record, who do a lot of great work. Obviously, you have hobby groups, whether it's like we have groups in there that do Spanish lessons, or they're doing dance groups. The community band are a wonderful group, Merryman Theatre, people like that. They're doing a lot of stuff with kids. You obviously also have civic and local democracy stuff, whether it's MP surgeries or meetings. During the course, over the course of the day, it can transform. It could be a toddlers group in the evening. You could have a religious group in the afternoon, and in the evening you've got NCT or something.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah. And then, so how many numbers do you know? Do you know how many people use the hall at the moment, roughly?
Off the top of my head, I think it was about 3,000 visits a month was the general thing. We're looking the other day actually, because we've just gone through what would have been the second year since the community cinema opened, and so I've got something to go through all the records, and we get for about 5,000 visits a year alone through just coming to community cinema screenings, which is averages out at about 60 per film. Okay. And obviously then counselling groups. So I think it's about 3,000 visits a month. So I suppose that's about 100 a day, isn't it? 100 people a day. That obviously that includes Sundays and weekends. So there's a bit more than that. And it depends what's on. Those are the regular groups as well. Obviously, when there's things like jobs fairs or things like that, those people aren't particularly accounted for. So there's a lot of people pass through.
So a lot of people, isn't it? So it's heavily used at the moment. And the other thing, of course, is what sort of problems do people face using the hall in its current form?
Yeah, obviously the assembly room, which is remaining much the same as it is the second floor. So if people go to the cinema, or they've been to concerts, or taking their kids to toddlers or something like that, that's probably the room that most people are probably most familiar with, because it's the sort of flagship room, I suppose. That room's really good, but obviously there's a lack of storage, which I think is a sign of it being built in 1860. People didn't own as much stuff, did they? Yeah. And then obviously over the course of the 20th century, where the market hall was, lots of an extra floor, a mezzanine floor was put in lots of rooms in a sort of rabbit warren, which were useful rooms, but they were hard to get to, and so there was a lack of storage. Entry was really difficult, because if you've ever been in, there's 3 entrances, you can't tell where to go, you get lost, it's not user friendly in that sense. Obviously, energy bills and things like that, which are rising. It wasn't built particularly to be most energy efficient. Obviously, we've learned a lot on that, I guess, since 1860. And as well as all the, so you've got the people getting lost. It wasn't particularly user friendly for accessibility purposes as well, which obviously affects security. I mean, it's very easy to get in. It was very easy to get in because the nature of the building meant you had to leave doors open a lot because that's the people had to be able to get in. So there were a lot of issues faced by users, and people made the most of it because volunteer groups tend to make the most of it. And it's a building in the middle of town, so it was useful. But yeah, it ate up volunteer hours because of the nature of the building, some of which was initial, I guess. And some of it had been
I heard stories about little Pat Flag spending about an hour having to go around and lock all the doors.
Yeah, I mean, wandering around, it's amazing. People said it was rabbit warren. I struggle with saying rabbit warren, but it wasn't it. And moving stuff around, and also even stuff like heating. I mean, it's an old building, but because it had been patched together over so many years, and trying to keep one floor, getting one, things like that, it just this will solve loads of those problems, make it a lot more user friendly.
Well, I was just going to ask, so the improvements, obviously it's going to be, how are the improvements going to help?
I mean, obviously the extra storage is really good. I mean, that extension is going to be massive. I mean, if you want to have I mean, we were talking the other day about the weddings, and people inquire about weddings at town hall. So, I mean, then that would be an option in the town hall weddings, because the problem was when we tried to put them on before, people loved having the weddings, a cheap, affordable option on the doorstep in a sort of a building that was reasonably iconic in the town. If you have that extension and storage, then it means that rather than carting chairs up and down stairs or up and down lifts, which is time consuming and not particularly health and safety friendly, that storage opens up these opportunities to run more events, because rather than having to have big gaps between things as well, you can shift one mode to another very quickly. Obviously, costs for running the building were reduced because, or reduced if we had to continue, because as in its current state, because you get obviously more modern heating systems, more modern insulation, everything like that. And those volunteer hours that are possibly lost, because volunteer hours, although they're free, it costs. It does cost you money. It costs. It's big economic. People don't realise what volunteer hours are an economic impact, because all those hours that somebody spent running around, moving chairs around for meetings or whatever, to put the cinema on. If you speed that out, it's more events you can put on, more activities, more markets you can put on. So it's really good.
That's good. And one of the things a lot of people have concerns about at the town hall is the cost of the transformation project.
Yes.
But just from speaking to you, it's obvious there's a strong economic argument that the town hall will bring in an additional income.
Yeah, and I mean, also it's an asset in itself. I mean, obviously, I'm just at the community trust, but I mean, from the town, from my point of view, what the town council gets out of that, I mean, is even if you're looking at that, one of the things about community impact, which is an economic impact as well, is I think that community groups who use that building get to use the space. They don't have to own their own space. For example, Off the Record used to have to own their own. They used to own the building behind Fat Sands, or which is it's the old I don't know what's called, because everyone calls it the old Off the Record building. But it's the old Off the Record building. But lots of groups like that or Age UK, for example, for their dementia services, who use the Orchard Hall and Town Hall. By using those spaces, those charities get to save lots more money, put their resources into helping the lives of the community, because they're not having to rent individual properties off of private landlords, which would soak up thousands and thousands of pounds per year individually. If Age UK had to have their own building, if Off the Record had to have their own building, if all these different charities or the town council had to rent its own new office, over time, I mean, that all immediately begins to add up. But by having these spaces which are flexible, which are some used to describe it as a room of requirements, of Harry Potter, where you walk in, it can become, if they're blank, it can become whatever you want it to be, because they're flexible community spaces. By having that, saves the community money in the long term, and I think the financial impact of that, as well as the social impact, is really important. I mean, and one of the other things that was mentioned, has been mentioned before by groups, is like counselling groups, is that by having a neutral building like the town hall, as somewhere like that, where people can go and visit their counsellor or something like that. If they're going into the town hall, there's not the stigma to that. If they go into a big they're going to a big sort of office unit that says health centre.
Yeah.
And they're walking in. It feels more. I mean, there can be a stigma that whether that's whether there is or not, but people feel wary of it. We're going into the town hall. They could be going to visit the town council. They could be going to the cinema. They could be going to toddlers. And if they're going to see the council, they feel like they're walking in and out without having that without that worry.
Well, that's good. No, yeah, I think there's a strong economic argument. It's not just about economics because it is a community space. But like I said, it saves charities money as well.
It's also an asset. I mean, it's an asset as well. I mean, one of the big things, the reason the community trust was set up by people like Councillor Plumley and there was Paul Myers and others people when they set the charity up was that a lot of these buildings were on about being lost to either Weatherspoons or flats and things like that. And if you lose those spaces, then all these groups have to find homes. But by having those assets, those are things that communities can do with things with money. Money changes in value, but if you've got assets, then you can always do things.
That's it, isn't it? And the thing is we've lost so many amazing assets for the town already, and this is a way to protect them. That's what I don't understand. It's so important because you look at the old pictures of Midsomer Norton, and it is beautiful, and over time we've lost the assets, and this is the first big one we're going to protect.
Yeah, I mean, I think protecting assets, protecting the hit to give you those options is important. I mean, it will cost. As much as it seems a big cost on paper, but I mean, I know involved in other groups, rugby club and other things like that. And when you look at building facilities do cost money, but you invest in them, and I mean that building there has lasted 160 years, and if you get another 160 years out of the investment, then it'd be money well spent, and you've just got to think about the generations of lives that can improve through these community groups. There's lots of volunteers. I mean, as you know, whether it's the sports clubs, counselling groups, the recreation clubs, there's so many volunteers in the town, and I think we've got a responsibility to give those volunteers the best resources to maximise what they're doing.
Yeah, because these are the guys that are putting in their work for free.
Yeah,
and often unsung heroes.
So if they're putting these hours in for free, we've got to give them spaces that they can. I mean, whether they can put concerts on, whether they can give people places to perform, give people flexible space they can use for conferences, for offices, or for teaching. And if you offer those spaces, then although there's an economic line on the bank on the sheet of paper saying it's X amount of money for phase one, X amount of money for phase two. I mean that doesn't take into account that you are then owning almost a world class sort of asset.
That's it.
That not only do you own, so it's not like we're giving. From my point of view, the community aren't giving £2 million away. They're not giving £2 million and it's gone. The money, well, it's whatever the figure is. I mean, but if the town council's free, but if you and Heritage England and all these funders, they're not giving it money away.
Yeah.
They're investing in it, and they still own that asset, and that asset can then be used for so many things. So,
well, I totally agree. I mean, I won't dwell on the economic bit, but I look at money on repairs and maintenance is money just being given away.
Yeah.
But money being invested is not. It's a long-term strategy.
You're not giving the money. You're not giving the money to a private company. You're giving the money to. You're just giving it back to the community. And because of the nature of the community trust and the town trust and the way it's been set up, is that those assets are safe.
So it's for the community, isn't it? It's very, very strong. So I was going to finish up with a few things. So we've touched on a couple. So we've got potential uses for the new hall.
Yeah.
So the big one that we don't have at all at the moment will be the reinstatement of the island, of the market square at the island.
Yeah.
And so how's that going to work with the town hall then?
So I mean, the market square, which has been, led by Baines and the town council and Heritage England.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a separate project to the town hall, but they dovetail clearly.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that then creates. I mean, the space, be able to have that market space in the island, which I think, whenever the time I've been through my life, but whenever people always talk about wanting markets because I think especially when you see the success that Frome have had and other towns with markets. I mean, in lots of ways, the high street struggles these days across the country, but the markets are ways of bringing people in and boosting them. And I think having that market square with a hall with an inside venue that you could just walk into, which would be the market hall, I think. Obviously, the market use is going to be one of the key functions of the new hall. I think there's that also, I mean, if you had markets in the market square, you could put performances on inside. So you could put there's craft fairs and art exhibitions, as well as hiring it. I mean, there was somebody went to the Journal today, and they were talking about, or the day that we're recording this, and they were talking about the opportunities for like soup kitchens or like meals. And we've had people talk already about trying to use it as sort of not banquets, but like people being able to come in and like community meal services and things like that.
Oh, right, okay.
Or where people would cook and people could come in and people who were struggling perhaps could come in and have a meal. And we have 2 or 3 groups already talk about that. And the kitchens and the public toilets and things like that give facilities to the town which aren't there at the moment. Like having a kitchen that can be used by the community opens up lots of opportunities on market days, for example, even that. I mean, which you can raise money from again. When people talk about the economic impact, I mean, obviously, there's lots of different models which we've looked at for whether the community trust can run it itself. I mean, you can franchise that out to local groups at different times. And there's lots of options. So, and obviously there's also the community groups that are here at the moment. Some of them were possibly using the assembly room upstairs, for example, but didn't really want to be cutting stuff up and downstairs, and then they've got a ground floor space. And we talk about conferences as well. If you've got a big space upstairs and a big space downstairs, you can run events that complement each other with different themes, possibly. I mean, like I said, the idea of having different cinema screenings on one floor or on another, but you could have, if you're doing, for example, I mean, obviously a lot of it unfortunately got cancelled because there was a lot of hard work put into it because of what happened in the last couple of weeks of the news. But when you have stuff like the Heritage Open Days, you could be showing things upstairs, you could have activities on the ground floor. And I think, as I said earlier, I mean, it's not just down to the community trust or the town council what happens with it. What it is it's giving the community and the volunteers that already exist in the town. There's loads of them. I mean, I know not just from work, from the rugby club and from the cricket club. So there's so many people wanting to do things in the town. And we've got some wonderful green spaces now which have been protected, and we've got these buildings. But by giving people, the volunteers, the platform that they can build on and work with, it's giving them the canvas and the paints, and then hopefully they can paint the pitch.
Absolutely. So just to finish, a couple of random questions to see how you get on. First one was, so what is great about Midsomer Norton? I'm
biased because I've lived there 32 years now. But I think the people. I think the people are great. There's a sense of community. One of the things that I always remember was when I came back from university and I had a couple of friends stayed for in Glastonbury, and we were walking down the high street and said hello to a lot of people, and they were really confused at the idea that that anybody could know everybody was walking by. And it wasn't because of famous, but just because. People know each other, and I think people do care for each other. And I think, although people can be quite defeatist about Midsomer Norton, self-deprecating about Midsomer Norton, I think people genuinely do feel passionately about it. And I think when you're involved in community groups, whether it's, I've got obviously worked for the community trust and the various community groups I've been involved with, loads of them over the course of the last 30 years. You realise how many people really do care about each other and care about what this town is and what it means. And obviously it goes through ups and it goes through downs, and there's arguments about what it means. But I think generally, I think it's the fact that people do care for each other, and I've got lots of great friends here, and the people that it produces this town, I think, is what makes it great.
It's great, isn't it? The more you put in, I think, the more you get out of it, and you really realise that. That's what I've found in the 8 years I've been here.
Yeah, and I think that the community groups are part of that, and I think it's a tricky time for the towns, isn't it? Society's changed so much in the last couple of decades, and people are trying to find what each town, trying to find its character. And obviously, I used to love things like the Wonder Bar. Obviously, the Wonder Bar stopped for whatever reasons, but I think the fact that people still feel passionate about those things, and they still want to, they want Norton to improve, and I see things like the Outfield Festival and when we had the concerts in the town park for the Jubilee, and you can see people do have an eagerness for things to succeed here, really. And I think, and you see it on Carnival. Carnival comes down in November, that there'll be thousands out on the high street, and I think we can be self-deprecating, but we've got to make sure that we do understand we love it here, really. People often go to uni, but most of them come back.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Alex. Really appreciate it.
No
That was Deputy Mayor Gordon Mackay speaking to Alex Davis about the exciting new project to transform the town hall for the community.